of a gentle warrior. And I'm Preeti Sureka. I'm a caregiver coach with Caregiver Sathi. And we have with us the very famous and the world renowned Mr. Samir Date. He is a singer by profession, although he was an architect before that. And he, along with his wife, Miss Dipali, is also known as India's favorite couple, singer couple. He has done many concerts. They have a global fan base. He has performed more than 600 concerts all over the world in countries like US, UK, Canada, and many more. And we have with us here to talk about uh, his caregiver journey. Unfortunately, his son was diagnosed with a brain tumor at a very young age, and although the disease won in the end, we would like to know from Mr. Samir Date how his journey was and share with us his experiences. So, welcome, Mr. Samir Date, and we are very fortunate to have you with us here today. Uh,
Thank you, Preeti.
yeah. Would you give us a little, background about how your caregiving journey was, and just a little overview about it?
I think before the December of 2017, life was quite normal. We were very busy with our routines, our events, and our world travel, concerts around the world, other engagements. And my son Rohan was also at that point a typical teenager, enjoying his college life, being defiant, being rebellious, and everything that a teenager would do. And life was going on um, as usual. And it so happened in December of 2017 that he started exhibiting certain signs of uh, that he started getting headaches and started uh, throwing up a little bit, without really any reason which could be attributed to it. And as parents, one would never think of such things uh, at all. I mean, what you would think is that हाँ चलो कहीं खा लिया होगा कुछ, or maybe went in the afternoon and played football, and that's why his head is hurting and all. So a few days went by like that, where he you would be at home and not go out with his friends, just be sleeping in the afternoon, and it was very difficult for us to determine what was going on. Uh, when I came to know about it, I immediately called up our family doctor and we got some tests done. We got some chest X-rays. We got some, the regular tests that one would do. He went to his own doctor also. I mean, of course, as a pediatrician, he's been going to a particular set of doctors. Of course, he was not a child anymore. But in that period of 1 week, we pretty much went to two, three doctors, and they gave us we standardized, treatment and diagnosis that nothing serious, and thing like that. And then this thing would just not persist. It would persist rather. It would not go away. So then finally, we discovered that I took him for a detailed examination to a hospital where one of my uncle is a very senior consultant. And under his advice and care, we ran a number of tests throughout the day. We started at 9 in the morning, I remember, and at 4 p.m. we discovered that he had brain tumor because the MRI was the last test that we ran, and that is where our journey with this began. To put it in short.
Yeah, it must have been difficult. But what were your thoughts and feelings, around the time when you came to know that there was this?
Well, nobody can ever be prepared, for your child having cancer. That also brain tumor. That also fourth stage. Because you only see this happening in movies, you hear of it happening to other people, but never in your wildest dreams will you ever imagine that it would happen to you, right? So it was it was a earth-shattering experience when I first learnt about it. I had no control over myself, and I remember that time in that in the ER room where the doctors broke the news to us, and it was like the earth had slid from under your feet. It was like that, and it's very difficult, very very difficult, because there is so much little that you know about the disease and also about what is to come. And whenever anybody says cancer, and that to brain cancer, you are going to assume the worst. This is the way we are conditioned. So it was very difficult to digest the fact that this had happened to my son, who was I think 17 at that time. He was not even 18. He was 16 and a half actually, not even 17. So very very difficult to digest that something like this has happened. But surprisingly, my son remained very calm through the process of discovery. So much so that he literally asked me that, do I have cancer? Do I have brain tumor? Because the ER is such that, it's just partitions, right? It's not a room or something. It's just partitions, and it's more like a recovery room where there are other patients also. And the doctors come and they discuss things in the open. So the patient can hear, and my son was quite smart. So after hearing the doctors, of course, the doctors, made an effort to be not very loud, but he was smart. So he heard them and he asked me. And what could I say? So I said, no, no, whatever it is, we'll deal with it. And, we have the best doctors. And I just tried to console him, not that he needed consoling, rather I needed consoling at that point. But I think he took it quite strongly from day one. From the initial point of discovery, he was smiling, that he will deal with it, right? So then that gave us a lot of strength to start with also, because had was I burdened with even breaking this news to him, I have no idea how I would have done it. So the first day itself was very, very eventful, and it was very, very distressing.
Yeah, or chattering as you described it.
Yeah.
And, thank you for sharing with all of us here. A lot of people will hopefully get benefited from the sharing of yours. So you spoke about that one of the challenges was that like you know so little about the disease, and you just don't know what it is all about. So what were some of the other challenges and your frustrations maybe as you went through the journey? I mean, would you take us through that?
No, I think to start with, as I said earlier, that cancer being cancer, we've had some instances of losing our near and dear ones to cancer in the not very distant past, where my wife's father passed away due to small cell cancer in 2015. So as the earliest of 2015, we had gone through this experience where a healthy man of 67 years with no smoking, no drinking habits, no health related issues otherwise, had passed on in about 14 months, from being a healthy person to not being there. So we'd already been through this journey once, and never had we thought that we would have to go through this journey once again. That also in the context of a 16-year-old. So, firstly, I think what I would say is that when we found out that this has happened, uh, luckily my family, my wife's family is full of doctors. So we did have, guidance then and there, to at least discuss what was required urgently to be done. And I did just that. In fact, so much so that I remember the date. It was 27th of December. 2017 when the discovery took place, and it was my parents' 50th wedding anniversary in Pune, for which we were all prepared to go. In fact, so much so that what I decided is that I'll take him to the hospital, I'll check him out, and then all of us will go to Pune. We had a 150 people party planned. Of course, after the discovery, all that got cancelled. My parents then rushed to Pune, rushed to Bombay. But I think immediately after that, the process of you know the immediate action, what immediate action has to be taken, started. And one of my cousins is a leading neuro surgeon in Indore. So I consulted with him, sent him the reports immediately, and then while my son was moved, he was shifted to ICU immediately. But once they learned he has tumor, they shifted him to the ICU immediately. And I then rushed to Hinduja Hospital to meet Dr. B.K. Mishra, who was the neurosurgeon over there, very, very senior, renowned neurosurgeon. And uh, my luck, I would say, is that he was actually waiting downstairs only because he had been informed by my cousin that I'm coming there and it's a very sensitive case because my son's tumor, the size of a ping pong ball, right at the back of his neck. So it was quite large in size. So he saw the the scans on WhatsApp itself, and he said that you have to operate tomorrow morning. We have to operate him tomorrow morning and get this out. So that itself, firstly, was a huge shock that a brain surgery in less than 24 hours of discovery. How is one going to do that? Um, anyway, what has to be done has to be done. So I remember at about 1 a.m. So his mother was with him in the ICU. I remember, and at 1 a.m. we shifted him from this hospital where the test took place to Hinduja. And next morning at 8 a.m. he was wheeled into surgery. So during actually it was when and the surgery went on for about 8 or 9 hours he was inside. And it was actually during that time that this whole thing sank in. And it was very difficult because uh, the day before we hardly got any time to process the fact that this has happened. There's the initial shock. But after the initial shock, your defense mechanism comes into play. So what you can now do, it's very natural in any calamity. So it is only when he was wheeled in next morning to the surgery in Hinduja, we had about 8, 9 hours to wait. And of course, nobody wanted to go home. My entire family was there. Everybody was there. And that is the time when the whole thing sank in. And that was very, very difficult, very, very difficult. Of course, some members of my family are stronger than the others. It's also about your mental makeup. So that's how it started. The first surgery took place a day after the discovery. It happened on 20. Sorry, the discovery happened on 28th of December in 2017, and the surgery happened on 29th morning. So 29th evening he was out of surgery, and they took part of the tumor and they sent it for biopsy. But I think the doctors knew that it's a cancer, and because they have so much experience dealing with these things, right? And so, although we were hoping against hope that it could be benign or it could be of a low grade, but I think everybody I had spoken to in that duration had not in those many words, but indicated to me that hey, look, this is not going to be very good because just I mean it's their experience that they deal with so many such cases that I could sense it in their voice that there's something that they don't want to tell me. I'm smart enough to understand when somebody doesn't want to give me some information, doesn't want to tell me something. So I kind of figured it out, and after that, then he came back into the ICU recovery room. Of course, he was quite out of it at that point with heavy sedatives and everything that he had been given. But I think that's then really when the whole process really started. The first 2 days were like a complete blank out. If you ask me today, it's completely something that's like a shock treatment to anybody, where you are just forced to go through something and you don't want to go through it, and you'd rather forget that you ever been through that. So after the surgery, I think then really we sat down and started thinking about what to do, because we knew that it's going to be a long drawn out process. It's not going to be something which is you just operate and you get it done with. This is not one of those type of cancers. It's a cancer which requires you know uh, additional therapies and additional treatment for it to uh, subside or really go away. But again, that's a wait and watch situation. This is what we had understood in the first 1 or 2 days with all the people that we had spoken with. I've spoken with some of our friends who are cancer survivors also. Of course, everybody was very encouraging and sympathetic, but nobody could really, tell for sure or say for sure as to what may happen or may not. Because what I understood was that in cancer, everything is so person specific. No two cases are alike. So somebody's experience may not be a benchmark for you or for anyone else. Of course, these are all individual experiences. And yes, stories of strength and resilience and all these are human elements of the story. But medically, each case is different and each instance is different. So yeah, so the first 2 days were I would say the most difficult for us to get through.
Yeah, sometimes life throws things at us at a faster pace than we are even able to absorb it.
Yeah,
And I can understand how it must have felt like, and to have a son who's so brave throughout of all of this must have been quite a thing to watch.
yeah, that was the revelation for us. That I mean, his my son's strength. Because if the child had broken down,
Yes,
already you are as a parent in a helpless and a situation where you are managing your own emotions with great difficulty. And if the child was also to break down or to say that the child always looks up to the parent, right? To for in any calamity or any even small problems, he always looks up to the parent that my parent will deal with this and they will will get me out of it. But in this case, there's nothing anybody can do, and not even the parent. So I would say that was a revelation, the kind of strength he showed. That hey, I'll deal with it. Whatever it is, I'll deal with it. And yeah, that was, I would say, side of my son which I've never seen before. Of course,
it
I
must have
mean,
given you
none of us
strength.
has been in that situation, and I
Yes,
pray to God that nobody, even all our viewers, nobody is ever put in that situation. But this was a big revelation for me,
yes,
inner strength.
absolutely. Inner strength. Sometimes you
Yeah,
get your strength from your children.
yeah.
What were some other insights that you may have, like, what was the lessons in all of this that you went through?
See, I think, as I said, the surgery happened in the second day itself. Then he was in the hospital for a few days. Uh, we had a lot of family around at that time, so somehow there is a little bit of support. To early days, I would say still, but in a couple of days we brought him home. Being brain surgery, it was very difficult to take care of at home also. But his recovery was good. Post-operative recovery was quite good. And then the process of what to do further started. What should we do further? And as you know, I have a very big social circle, very big family circle also. So, and everybody was very keen to help out in some way because it was a shock to everybody. Everybody. Nobody expected this. So everybody was trying to help out. Everybody was trying to get information. My sister lives in the US. So she spoke to a number of doctors over there, number of, she's a speech therapist, so she spoke to her colleagues who are, you know, in medicine, tried to get information about hospitals, which we even send the samples, not samples, rather report, uh, to US, and we forwarded those reports to certain places to get some additional second opinions and insights. But as it happened, uh, a week after, I remember a week after his surgery, the biopsy report came. And I still remember that I'd gone with my wife to the hospital, and we had reached a little early. So we were actually sitting in the car with our fingers crossed, saying that, let it be a grade 1 or a grade 2 cancer. But as luck would have it, it was grade 4. So we got the report, and then we came home. We faxed the report over to my sister again, and also to some other friends, and my cousin also was a consultant. Uh, Within, I think, 2 or 3 days, uh, my sister informed us about St. Jude's Medical Research Center. It's a pediatric medical research center in Memphis, Tennessee, USA. And St. Jude's is one of the best known and most reputed pediatric cancer hospitals for children in all of USA. So when we heard about St. Jude, of course, we being Indian, there is a big question mark about getting treatment abroad, and that also prolonged treatments. Because what happens is that you have family back home in India, you have a huge big support system here. Anything you need is a phone call away. You're so used to life over here, you know how things work, right? So to go to a foreign country with a child who's a patient to undergo all this, so there was a constant dilemma whether we should go down this road or whether we should not go down this road. So it's a very difficult decision. These are decisions you have to make, and you will get 100 opinions from 100 people. But ultimately, it is up to you as a parent, and ultimately up to the child to decide what you want to do. So I was mentioning about St. Jude. So we looked up St. Jude on its website, and it just so happened that one of the very senior doctors in St. Jude, whose name is Dr. Amar Gajjar, is an Indian. He was the head of the medulloblastoma research division. And you can call it irony, you can call it fate, I don't know what you can call it, but my wife has performed in his house in Tennessee 6 years ago. That was in 2012 or 2013. So she recognized him from his picture. She said, I have gone to this person's house, I've stayed with him for 3 days and I know him. But I didn't know he was in Chambers. So once she said that, we started the process of trying to locate him where he is. And we contacted a common friend, and we learned that he was in South Africa watching the India South Africa cricket match. So I said to my wife that you do one thing, you immediately message him. You send him a message. She messaged him, and I would say within a few hours, he called back from South Africa. And of course, he recognized my wife. My wife briefed him about the situation at hand. And the first question he asked us was that, do all three of you have a passport and a valid visa? And the answer to that was yes. So he said, okay, I'm returning to the US in 3 days from South Africa. Please make sure that your son's reports and his a sample of the biopsy is shipped to me at my clinic address in Memphis, Tennessee at St. Jude. So we got the address, and immediately I managed to get a sample of the tissue, and we sent it to him in USA. In the meanwhile, my son was recovering in Bombay. Uh, We had also started taking him to Hinduja to meet the consultant doctor who operated on him. So on the other side, there was also a discussion about what ahead now. So already a plan was being drawn up for his radiotherapy treatment in Hinduja itself. So we met the consultant there as well. And of course, we did disclose to them that, hey, this is we are talking to somebody in St. Louis in USA. And of course, as nothing is certain as of now, but this is just something which we would like to tell you. So they said that if you get a chance to go to that center, then you please go because that is that's where the uh, best research
That's
on
best.
the subject happens in the whole world. So everything happens there first, and then it comes everywhere else. And even Dr. Gajjar himself is a highly respected entity in this domain. So that gave us a lot of courage and a lot of hope. You know, although again, as I said, it's a very difficult decision to go so far in such a situation. If it was a trip, it was different, but to go for medical treatment is never easy, especially with a child. So finally, when he saw the tissue culture there, he tested it at his own end. He said that I have certain programs here which would fit Rohan, and if you guys want to come, I will arrange for you all to be brought here, and also for him to be admitted, and his entire treatment can happen over here. Of course, there were many aspects to consider. After considering all the aspects, we decided that we will take him to US. And so much so that Rohan himself said, "Yeah, I want to go to the US." I mean, see the irony, that my son was always fond of good things. He was fond of the best clothes, the best shoes, best everything. Very, very influenced by foreign culture. And we discussed that, at some point, work hard in your studies, you may be able to go abroad. But he saw this as an opportunity to go to a different country and live there. I mean, it was so ironic and it was so, what do you say? I don't know the correct word for it, but it was what do you say? Fate had, brought together this whole plan in such a way that, and he was so excited to go to the US. So on one side, there was a huge concern for us. On the other side, it was actually, uh, a relief to see that joy on his face that, hey, I'm going to US, for a year, almost like somebody is going to study there or somebody is going to. Although he was going there for a
Treatment.
surgery, the first surgery would happen there again. One more surgery would happen. He would have radiotherapy there, proton therapy to be precise, and then he would have a number of chemotherapy sessions over there, which would all go through a period of about 8 to 9 months, 9 to 10 months, I would say. But he was looking forward to it, and he was excited as if the child was going on a trip. So that was something which I always remember, and it was ironic, but that one image has always stayed with me. Anyway, so in 2 3 weeks when his recovery was complete in Bombay, we left for the US and we landed in uh, St. Jude. The doctor was there at the airport also to receive us. The arrangements there were really really good, very very well taken care of. The patient care over there is excellent, and that's how our journey in the US started. I would say we were this his uh, surgery took place on 28th of December, 29th of December 2017, and on the 30th of January, we had reached US, Memphis, Tennessee, St. Louis. That's where his journey over there started.
Almost like almost a month. That's it.
Almost a month. So that it took that much time for recovery and everything else.
So like support that you get from your social circles and families, and even like everything around it is such an important thing. That's kind of
Yeah, it is. But see, ultimately, what I found was that uh, ultimately it is your own
own
inner circle.
decisions. Yes.
Because look, people are very well-meaning. People want to help. People feel sorry. People feel sympathy. But there's only that much that people can do. And everybody has a life to deal with. Everybody has their own problems. Everybody has their own occupation. So after that initial euphoria is over, apart from your own family, there aren't those many people. Yeah, people would come visit, of course. I'm not going to say that people are very sensitive, but everybody has their own life, no. So one can't expect that support system to be there forever. The lucky ones have a good support system within their own families only. Your parents, your spouses, your child parents, and all those are, I would say, your inner circle, the siblings, the friends, of course. Now my son's friends played a big role. They were there constantly with him. Every evening in my house, 15-20 people used to be there, 15-20 kids. Every evening, like a birthday party every evening. So the people they group together at such times, because what happens is that everybody wants to help, as I said, but there's such little that anyone can do. So yeah, so that was that. Uh,
So how did you deal with your other responsibilities and your other
See,
parts of it?
very honestly, when this whole thing happened, work and everything was the last thing one would think about. And God has been kind. I'm self-employed. I'm an artist, so I can decide when I wish to work and when I don't wish to work. Not everybody has that luxury. I understand, but after that initial shock period, no, you generally then tend to adapt. See, human beings are adaptive creatures, you know, uh, because you don't have any other option, right? But to adapt. What option do you have? It's not that you have this option and that option and that option. You don't. This has happened. You have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. Yeah, there's initial shock. There is initial sadness. There is initial anger. Why did this happen to me? You know, what has happened to my son, rather? But after all that, you have to accept it. You have no other option. So, luckily, music, which is our profession, vocation, devotion, did help us a lot, uh, to deal with, in some measure, what we were going through, I would say. Uh, we are very busy musicians. We tour the world constantly. But of course, while the initial period from January of 2018 till about May of 2018, we didn't work at all. We didn't work at all. We were with Rohan only because the day we landed, in 2 days, he had a second surgery, which was in St. Jude's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. My sister from San Jose had also flown down to be with us. So that center over there was quite medically advanced. Then Hinduja Hospital in Bombay. One of the main reasons was that they had a MRI system in the operating room itself. So when you operate the patient, there's an MRI, immediate MRI, which tells the consultant doctor if he needs to operate it more before picking up the patient. And in India, what happens is, in Hinduja, what happened was they operated him, then they stitched him up, and then after 2 days they took him to the MRI to see what's happened inside. So technologically, I found there's a big difference over there. Also methods of working, and I don't mean to take away any credit from Indian doctors. I think Indian doctors are also extremely talented, and they know their job very well. It's just that in India, we have so many people, and the crowd is so much, frankly, that over there it was a little bit of I would say, uh, environment which made you feel a little more comfortable. Although surgery and everything is very difficult, and so, as you said, over there was no family, there was nobody. So I remember even after his first surgery, when he was in the recovery room, so my wife had actually got the flu when we reached there, so she was unwell for a few days, so she could not come to the hospital, and it was only me and my sister, I remember. So we used to take turns and sit in the hospital sometimes for a few hours and alternate like that. Then after that, we it was almost like moving to another country where we actually got a rented apartment, and we set up the bedroom and the living rooms. And I remember my son wanted a rocking chair, so I actually got a rocking chair for him. Uh, One of the recliners, the automated recliners, because I knew that he would be in and out of surgeries and treatment. So he liked to watch TV. He liked to watch his, teen programs, etc. So this would be sitting on the bed. Although there was a television in the bedroom, but sitting on a bed like a patient and watching TV all the time. Rather than that, I got a big recliner for him, which we kept in the living room, and there was a big screen TV there. So it was a nice change of this place for him as well. So they didn't feel like just being a patient all the time in the bedroom. So I remember in the first week, that's what we did. Small, small things were there. I mean, he was used to having that. In Bombay, we have these jet sprays on the commodes, right? So in the US, you don't. So he said, I can't use this commode, I can't. So I remember I got a Mexican handyman and I went and purchased these jets and I got them installed. So you actually, what do you say? In Indian language, they call it jugaad. You have to do jugaad. You
Mm.
have to make yourself comfortable wherever you are, And I was just driven by how I could make Rohan more comfortable, whatever he needs. So I just did whatever I think any father would do. I
Yeah.
don't think anything special. But that was the least I could do because medically I couldn't do anything. I could only take him to the best doctors,
Yes.
provide him the best treatment that he deserved. But beyond that, I couldn't do anything. There was nothing in my hand.
Your face lights up every time, you, I mean, your son still had that jest for life throughout.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
that's good. So how did you take care of yourself? Like what kind of things did you do to take care of your well-being?
Uh, you know what? It's strange that when we went to St. Jude's, it's a cancer center for children, right?
Mm.
So when you see other patients and their parents around you, you get a sense of perspective in life,
Mm.
which has which was missing, I would say. Because as I said, in normal circumstances, someone would never go through something like this or would never be required to go through something like this. But now that the fact can't be changed that this has happened, it was difficult in India. I'm telling you, very difficult in India. But when we went to the US, we saw other parents, we saw other fathers, other mothers, other children, children much younger than Rohan, children who are born with cancer. You know, so that gives you a strange type of perspective. Not that it makes it any easier, but it just shows you that hey, this is also happening in the world. These are things you're oblivious to otherwise. You know, so it was those numerous interactions and just seeing parents with their children because there was in the hospital there was a very big reception hall where they had these shuttles, which would take you to your residential places and all that. Very well organized, very well, like a hotel. It was like a five-star hotel. So you would see so many, and now that we used to go there every day, we got to know few people there. Of course, with some people you just had visual hi hello, with some people who stayed close to you, you know them, you started to get to know people, right? Made friends with some people. There were some, I remember some patients who were, some kids rather, who were Rohan's age. So he made friends with them down the road. We made friends with their parents. We used to meet, you know. So try to make the situation as normal as possible. Try to have a normal life, I remember there was a gym on the second floor. The building that we lived in was a very beautiful building. It was a restored building. It used to be an industrial factory premises, and it was restored into a multi-use building where it has offices and cafes and gyms. and on the top 5 or 6 floors there were residential apartments. So we were staying there. So it was like the happening place in Memphis. So that was a nice place. Luckily, the place was very vibrant. So every evening down in the foyer, there's two foyers. So there used to be some activity happening every single day. So it was a little, I would say these were small reliefs, that were there. And ultimately, wherever you are, you have to, normalize your own life. Nobody's going to come do it for you. You have to find things to do. You have to get into your routine. You have to do things. If you sit around and wait for somebody else and come and fix things, it's not going to happen. So I think slowly we just got into, you know, a routine because everyday hospital visit that was there. Hospital visits used to end by 2 to 3 o'clock. Morning there used to be consultation. Some days there used to be a therapy. Some days there used to be this. Some days there used to be that. Of course, then when the proton therapy started, the radiotherapy, that was a session of about the session itself was very short, about I would say 20 minutes or so only. But then going there, waiting there, bringing him back, and then the hair loss started. So all those symptoms started. Then I remember one day he said, "My hair is falling. Just get me a shaver and just shave my hair." So I remember at 12 o'clock in the night I shaved his head. So all these experiences, you had. So how does one normalize these things? Very difficult to do. But I think you just have to take each day as it comes, and fit in your routine into that day, because these thoughts will never leave you. This is not, there's nothing that you can do to alienate yourself from these constant thoughts of depressing thoughts. What is going to happen, because at the deep in your heart, that what may happen. Although I'll tell you a very strange coincidence that once we went there, there was a big discussion about probability and about prognosis. Okay, in cancer, there's a big word called prognosis. This cancer is 80% curable. People say, something 90% curable. So in Rohan's case, the prognosis was 80% curable. So 80% is a good percentage, for anybody. But after this whole thing happened, after Rohan passed away, what we realized is that if you're in that 20%, it's 100% for you. It's not 80%. So it's a lot of destiny, fate. I don't know what you call it. It's just your luck. So there's nothing like 80% or 20%. अगर आपको हो गया और आपका luck अच्छा नहीं है, so it's 100% for you, right? What does that 80% count for you? Then nothing. So it was a very interesting time, I would say. And by interesting, I don't mean very uh, happily interesting, but it was a learning experience. I could have done without that knowledge also, honestly. Had anybody asked me that, do you want to learn this, I said no, not this way surely. But it just showed us a different side of life, that even these things happen in life.
And the
And
best you can do is to have a perspective and have a lot
yeah,
of gratitude
so
and compassion.
I would say it is a perspective which you didn't ask for, but you got. And yeah, and ultimately, I do feel that it's your resilience. And as I said, human beings are adaptive creatures. They will adapt. They will adapt, right? If you break your foot, then you will not walk. You will have to adapt. You will sit at home and wait for it to cure. So this is just one of these things that you have to wrap your head about around the fact that this has happened, and there's nothing you can do to reverse it. And you have to do your best, which we did right till the end. To do your best and leave everything else to fate, destiny, God, I would say. Who knows if there's a God or no? Who knows? If such things happen, all your fundamentals of faith are also shaken, right? I mean, which God would want this to happen, right? So, but then, I think the best is not to think too much about it. अब जो हो गया वो हो गया. What to do? So the whole thing went on for quite some time. We were in US for, as I said, 10 months. Lot of treatment, very strong doses of chemotherapy. You know, uh, And you know how chemotherapy is, it makes you sick and then you become okay, then again it makes you sick and become okay. So luckily we had Rohan's mom was there, his mother, his granny was there, my mother was there for a certain period. So uh, actually I could resume my work in month of May, June, because we have to work. Look, I mean, not working is not an option. And so we did have the support system where his mother was with him for a few months. Uh, my mother was there, and my mother had a heart attack while she was in the US. So she had two stents put in. So it was like every day something new was happening. So she got taken care of in the US also. So we had two patients at one time during the month of May. Of course, she's good now. But ये सब हुआ तब. Or then that year we did perform a lot. We did have our season happens in September and October. So I remember that year we did 23 shows in US while my other family members were taking care of Rohan in the US. And then I remember after our shows when we did a the family members left for Bombay, and then me and my wife stayed there with him again. That is the time his last scans were due, and we found out that again the cancer come. So that was like after so many months of you know uh, going through all this, and with the hope that actually at that point you're actually thinking how are you going to plan his life going ahead, because cancer is something where every 6 months you have to have a PET scan and every 6 months you have to have an MRI. So I was actually grappling more with those thoughts, that how do I normalize his life going ahead. Surely I don't want to send him far away. I want him to be close to me. Whatever plans you made earlier in your life, you again try to realign those plans. But we weren't prepared for this, that the cancer is back, and the doctor was very candid. He said it's a question of 3 or 4 months. So he was very candid. And at that time also, when he said this, my son was right there. So it's not that anything was said or discussed, in his absence. But I honestly, if you ask me, I always, I remember that even till the last day, I was only telling my son that, nee, nee, you're getting better. Don't worry. Now you'll get better, and in 2 days you'll come home. So that was a lie I told him throughout his illness. I think till the last day, I remember, because I had nothing else to say. What else could I say? I knew what was happening. I had figured it out. मुझे पता चल गया था कि not going to end well. And in fact, so much so that when the doctor told us in month of November that his certain the cancer cells are back in his latest MRI, and now there's no point in continuing over here. But we did ask him that, is there any other program, any clinical trial? So he very very candidly told us that, look, there are clinical trials. I can sign you up for them, but what you have to understand is that if you go through it, the condition of your son is going to deteriorate. His motor functions are going to stop working. You will not even be able to take him back to India. This is what he told us. At that point, we decided that if this is what is going to happen, and we always hope against hope, right? Because there are so many instances we know where doctor has said that you have 6 months and people live for years. That has happened in the past, and miracles do happen, as they say, right? So we were hoping against hope that maybe doctor has said 3 4 months, but maybe it'll be a year, maybe it'll be more than that. Who knows? Maybe some cure will come. Maybe some treatment will have will discover something. The doctors may discover something. So all that eternal hope you are always living on, right? So we brought him back in December, and from December till February, he was partying with his friends as if nothing had happened. He was out every night. Luckily, his motor functions were not getting affected to that extent till then. He was, and of course, we allowed him to do everything because when you know that he is on borrowed time. So it's nothing that you're going to say, don't do. So, but then in February, I remember he started getting seizures. That's when I think the cancer had grown to a level where his motor function started getting affected. And then I think it's a matter of a month or so, month and a half, where we had to admit him into the hospital also. He was in the ICU. And finally, then on 13th of March 2019, he passed away. But then that's what happens, after you've been through so much, and it is a journey of self, what do you say, helplessness on part of caregivers, that you can't do anything. You can't do anything other than just be there. For that, I think what's important is for you to somehow find the strength, to at least keep manage your own self. At least keep some semblance of sanity within yourself. It's very easy to let go, to kind of crumble under such extreme and dire tragic circumstances. But the patient is only looking up to you, right? My son only was looking up to us only. Anything happened, he used to call me. And who else will he call? So I don't know if I did anything special or I did anything out of the ordinary. I think anybody who is in this situation must be doing pretty much the same thing, maybe even better. But this is just a journey which is self-guided, I think, and there's really no planning or nothing you can do special. It's just you reacting to things, and things which are within you, which you didn't even know existed, which are coming to the fore, and which somehow then shape your personality going forward. It makes you more sensitive, it makes you more resilient, of course, and it also makes you, sensitive to other people's, tragedies and their circumstances at some level, I would say, which is very necessary. I feel people should be sensitive to everybody around them. But I think this is just one of those things that happened in our life. Of course, it's something that remained with us forever. Very difficult to let it go. And but that's what it is, And uh, it's been about 3 years now, but it feels like yesterday. It feels like yesterday. So I think that's Rohan's story for you. I think pretty much covered most of it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, memories are all we are left with, and those are the things that give us, the
Yes,
moments
yes,
of joy that we spent with them.
yes.
And Rohan's, it seems I like I've met him through your words, and I am privileged and honored to have met him. There was so much to learn from him, the way he, was present to himself in the last moment. I mean, it was awesome to even hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great,
Thank
great.
you, Mr. Samir, for sharing so openly and so vulnerably with all of us. This is really going to benefit each one of us who's watching and who's going through a similar journey, or even otherwise, because I mean, this is really going to benefit a lot of people.
I'd like
One
to
last
thank.
question.
Yeah,
Uh,
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so I just one last question. Did your creative pursuits and your creative expression help you as a caregiver, like in this journey, because you are an artist? And was it helpful in any way to in this particular aspect of life?
I think as a creative person, your sensitivity index is very high to start with,
Yes.
but then also is your emotional index also. So
Yes.
it's a double-edged sword, really.
Mm-hmm.
While you are very sensitive and while you are, you carry the entire baggage of sensitivity,
Mm-hmm.
there is also a lot of emotional baggage that you then tend to carry and accumulate.
Yes.
So, yes, of course, yes and no, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
because being an artist, we look at it, we look at life also very differently. We are also philosophical to a certain degree because we read a lot of literature. whether it is written prose form or poetry, whether it is Urdu ghazal, whether it is Sufi, whether it is, so we read a lot of, material which is spiritually inclined. It exposes you to also a lot of thought processes, of great minds. So with the benefit of that, yes, I would say to a certain degree, it sensitizes you, uh, you know, but again, as I said, nothing can prepare you for something like this. Nothing, nothing. These can all only be, I would say, uh, small diversions from, uh, what is there, what is the truth. So these are diversions from truth. कभी कुछ गा लिया या कभी थोड़ा म्यूजिक सुन लिया या कभी कुछ create कर दिया. I used to create music while I was in the US. I have a small workstation which I set up over there. Because otherwise, what would I do all day? I have a home studio in Bombay. Over there, I actually created a small workstation, music workstation, where I could create some material, create music. So I was doing that. But overridingly, you're there for a purpose. And these things, while they do help, but I wouldn't say to an extent or a degree where it helps you to forget, the real reason that you're there and what you're really going through. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And like the in the end, what helps you is like that you keep your sanity because you see a lot of people looking up to you and depending
Yeah,
on
yeah. And I must say that Caregiver Sati is doing a very good job of bringing these stories out to people who would need this kind of support. And again, as I say, I don't know whether I did anything different or whether I did anything out of the ordinary. This is something which any parent or any caregiver would do. But I think it's just some people, are, I would say, destined to go through this. So I have only sympathy and, words of encouragement, if I can offer any, to those who are in such a situation. And I really pray that God bless them and, uh, the those who they are caring for recover from their ailment and all of them have a happy life going forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samir. As you said very rightly, like sometimes looking at people and hearing their stories gives you a lot of perspective. So I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of people would get a lot of relief and help just listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having coming to us and sharing your story with us. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you.
Thank you.